You know what my shirt is made of? Boyfriend material.
Wow. Wow. The quarterfinals delivered. It wasn't just a dude named Rice scoring bangers against Los Blancos. No. We were treated to a feast this week. And fellas, feast your eyes on this. The new number sent to me by our good friends over at Sangalo. This is the new one that they made for Academy Eagles FC, the champions of Turks and Caicos. As always, this is part of Sangalo growing the game internationally in underserved parts of the world by providing clubs with access to quality kits, as well as the sale of them through their online store. And for us, that means the most unique kit shop on the internet. They have official kits from everywhere, the middle of the Pacific, Southeast Asia, Africa, the Caribbean, everywhere, man. So use the link in the description and my code RBTV at the checkout to get 10% off of your order when you're ready to add to your kit collection. All right. Let's go. Wow, chapeau to Arsenal, man, because this was a fantastic performance. On the one hand, you can look at it and say, well, what were Real Madrid to do? It was 2 perfect strikes from free kicks and then another goal when they had lost their heads defensively. But on the other hand, that doesn't really tell the whole story of this match, does it? First of all, the lineups, because it looked like there was weaknesses in both sides when it came to the defensive area, the area where both of them had a lot of injuries. Jakub Kiwior and Lewis Skelly, you had to wonder how they would handle coming up against Valverde making overlapping runs, and Rodrigo. For Real, Alaba and Camavinga coming up against Saka and Odegaard on that left side of Real Madrid lineup. Question marks there as well going into this, right? And I actually thought that Camavinga was quite good prior to his sending off once Real Madrid had lost the plot. He did well to help Alaba defensively where he could to really contain Saka, which they did for the most part. Saka wasn't as big of an issue. He's unfortunately, for Arsenal supporters, not back to his best yet, and they'll be hoping that Arteta's words of him being fine after getting subbed off with an injury will ring true. But despite Real doing fairly well to keep that wing under control, there was a lot of foreshadowing in that first half with how many squared balls went through the box untouched by Arsenal, whether it was attacking down the left flank or the right. They had opportunities where passes through the box went completely unchallenged. Really were missing a striker who would attack the 6-yard box there, although no disrespect to striker Marino, as he did his part later. Real Madrid had a lot of issues in the attack once again. They still seem to focus much of their attack down the left flank, where Vinicius, in my opinion, is still out of form. He's not even close to his best at the moment, not even close to his own high standards, right? And Jurrien Timber dealt with him really well. He's made that right back position his own at Arsenal, just a pure defender. Right back, center back, left back, he's comfy, no stress anywhere. But it wasn't just Vinicius. It wasn't just him that had a tough day. Rodrigo was largely anonymous in this one, and Arsenal plugged up the middle so much that in the few times that Mbappe did get the ball, he was completely surrounded by 3 or 4 Arsenal players. So you had Vinicius struggling to make things happen down that left flank, Mbappe, who is in form, barely getting the ball through the middle, and I was wondering to myself, if I'm Ancelotti, when am I going to make a brave decision? I couldn't help but wonder how Real Madrid's attack could benefit from Mbappe being on the ball more in those wide positions with someone else playing through the middle. Endrick, for example. Getting Mbappe on the ball has to be the goal. It has to be. And I made a video about this that I published on Tuesday. Rodrigo was also disappointing considering he was up against a teenager in Jakub Kiwior. I thought that he would have done far better, but also Rice was pushing left to help out defensively as well, so that contributed to Rodrigo's struggles. Speaking of Rice, if you haven't seen the goals he scored, if you haven't seen them yet, you are doing yourself a complete disservice. You are letting yourself down because we saw the birth of an elite ball striker, someone who looked like he was Shunsuke Nakamura out there. Declan Pernambucano, right? 2 free kicks and both were just technically perfect and couldn't be placed better. The first one was incredibly impressive, absolutely lashed it, no chance for Courtois. And the second one, sure, Courtois was already leaning to jump in the other direction, but I'm not even sure that if he hadn't done so, that he would have been able to save this free kick. The pace and placement, just again, absolutely perfect. How do you even save this? Because yes, the placement is pristine, but there's also the pace, the power of the strike. Honestly, I can't even imagine how it felt for Rice. Not 1, but 2 free kicks against Real Madrid, playing at home in the Champions League quarterfinals. What an achievement from Declan Rice, which went with his fantastic performance overall, providing danger going forward with the ball, combining well down that left flank, as well as defensive coverage when needed. In between his goals, Arsenal were all over Real Madrid as well, forcing saves out of Courtois. You had 2 balls cleared off of the line as well by, I think it was Valverde, or maybe Alaba, and the other one was Bellingham for sure. During the watch along, I was saying how you could argue that Thibaut Courtois is and has been Real Madrid's most important player in their Champions League conquest in the last few years, but there was only so much he could do in this game, right? He was solid once again. And with Arsenal continuing to get balls into the box and balls played through it, cutbacks, etc., Merino's finish to make it 3-0 as he's moving away from the goal. What a strike from him. 3-0 Arsenal, absolute mountain to climb for Real Madrid. Yes, there is a chance, a small chance, but there's still a chance that Real Madrid could turn this around. They are one of the few teams that you know it's a possibility that they pull it off, but with how poorly they defended and with the difficulty they had in the attack, it's hard to see how they do it. They were bad. Okay, another great match, man. Really enjoyed watching this one right after the Arsenal versus Real match, but a bit of a different match, right? This was Inter, typically organized incredibly well, with Bayern finding their way through now and then, but unable to take their chances, while Inter were able to finish the fewer chances that they had. If you're an expected goals believer, Bayern had 2.30 to Inter 0.78, 20 attempts to 10. The difference here, fellas, is finishing, isn't it? Another difference maker are the absences. Yes, Inter were missing their preferred wing backs in the injured Dumfries and DeMarco, but he was on the bench. But the guy filling in on the left did well. Another solid performance from Carlos Augusto. For Bayern, their injury list is wild, man. Neuer, Davies, Coman, Ito, Pavlovic, Upamecano, and of course, Jamal Musiala, a huge miss, which led to Rafael Guerreiro getting the start as an attacking midfielder. It was interesting. I mean, he played there at Dortmund previously as well. He played in the attack, but I thought Muller would have been trusted. Granted, he doesn't really have the legs to maybe start a match like this, so coming off of the bench makes sense. And Guerreiro wasn't bad, was he? So Bayern had the early opportunities as they were able to carve out some decent ones. Olise was the big danger for them in the attack as he put one just wide, but Kane had a good chance with a header after 14 minutes. That was just way too central to cause any issues. I guess given how much he had to jump, it was difficult to get any kind of direction on the ball. But about 10 minutes later, and a mistake from Pavard at the back led to a chance for Harry Kane. His finish looked good, but it rang off the upright. Bit of a let off there for Inter, wasn't it? You have to finish a chance like that in this competition, Harold Kane. That can be the difference between survival and elimination. But as the match progressed, the more that we saw the brilliance of Nicolo Barella, who was unbelievable. That pass he played forward to Lautaro in the 32nd minute where Lautaro unfortunately slipped, unbelievable. Cutting through multiple lines of players before reaching its target, and even prior to that, he helped in the build-up to Augusto's chance that hit the side netting with that deft little flick in the midfield to spring Bastoni forward. He's just a fantastic player, isn't he? Fun to watch. Speaking of incredible players, Lautaro Martinez, big performance in this game, and with an ode to a player that failed to really snap at Inter, Ricardo Quaresma, the Trivela king of football. Again, ball work down Inter's left, their most dangerous side when it comes to the attack. And speaking of deft touches from a second ago, Marcus Thuram with an absolute velvet, cushiony touch to set up Lautaro for the Trivela goal outside of the boot from El Toro. He started the move actually by winning that header in the build-up, and then he finished it off. Inter are absolutely drained physically, still fighting in 3 competitions, and you saw that big time in the second half, as from about the 60th minute or so onward, it was all Bayern dictating the play and Inter just sitting back, getting closer and closer to Inter's goal. Sommer making a couple of saves, nothing crazy, but still he was called upon, but it was mostly Bayern failing to hit the target until Muller came on, and it had to be him, right? Bastoni just caught out of position, and he made it count. Special moment for Thomas Muller, given the news that he'll be leaving Bayern at the end of the season. They still lost, yes, but to see him scoring in the Champions League quarterfinals again and getting this reception, I mean, check out this snippet of this video from the great Archie Rindtut. But as I said, there was no real fairy tale result, as shortly after, 3 minutes after Muller's goal actually, Carlos Augusto squares to Davide Fratesi to make it 2-1 Inter and give them the advantage going back to Milan. Honestly, if Bayern don't turn things around, then that may have been Muller's final Champions League match at the Allianz Arena. So that's a fitting potential, I mean, it's not over yet, but potential send-off for him, despite the loss, of course, but, you know, getting a goal, that's nice. So here's the thing. You can't say that this tie is over. Anything can happen, and Bayern did play well enough to win. They simply didn't take their chances. That was the difference here. Similarly to how they had a night where they couldn't finish anything in important moments, here's looking at you, Harry Kane, they could have a night where everything goes in Milan, but that doesn't seem likely. Not impossible, but really not likely. Not only because of the home advantage for Inter, so that will fire them up, but because of how well Inter has defended in this tournament especially. From 11 matches now, they have conceded just 3 goals. 1 goal conceded in the league phase, 1 against Feyenoord, which was a penalty by the way, and 1 conceded against Bayern in this match. 2 goals conceded from open play, both times they were playing away, and only 1 conceded at home, that Feyenoord penalty. That's a pretty damn good defensive record. So no, this isn't over, but this will require Bayern to be absolutely clinical, while being absolutely the cleanest they've ever been at the back, in spite of all the injuries that they have. So, PSG, who wrapped up Ligue this past weekend, no longer have to worry about that, beyond potentially becoming the first French side to ever have an undefeated season, if I'm not mistaken. Villa, they're fighting for a Champions League place currently in the Premier League, coming into this with 8 wins on the trot. So some sensational form from Emery's fellas, right? PSG were all over Aston Villa early in this one, with their sheer pace causing major issues. After the initial flurry though, that Aston Villa back 5 began to settle into things far more, and while PSG were still causing issues and were threatening thanks to the distribution from Vitinha in particular in the midfield, they were limited to half chances for a while, weren't they? And then, out of nowhere, a sucker punch, a flowing attack down Aston Villa's left flank led to a squared ball to Morgan Rogers, and he finished past Gigio Donnarumma. Unbelievable stuff from Villa out of nowhere. That's their bread and butter, no? Just wait, and then pounce to punish your team. Fun one for Emery, getting one over his former employers, and a great squared ball from Tielemans there as well. Very nice. PSG almost responded immediately when Desiree Doué had his strike saved somehow by Emi Martinez off the post, back off Martinez. But about 30 seconds later, Doué got what he deserved. Following the corner, he cut inside, then hit a nasty curling strike that powered in off of the crossbar. You cannot save that. You simply cannot. It looked like he was playing for revenge after Martinez denied him of a goal. So that was 1-1. With this PSG side, once they smell blood, you fear for their opposition. And they got right back to dominating proceedings again. Doué in particular was a menace. That roulette then shaping up for a shot. Whew. He was fun to watch in this one, wasn't he? In the second half, PSG continued their dominance, and it was an absolute wonder goal from Kavica Kvaratskhelia. He twisted Axel Disasi before hitting a screamer past Emi Martinez at the near post. He's truly become one of the best ball strikers I've seen this season, the accuracy of which he smashes the ball. Even first time, as he did a little bit later, which was blocked, but it's quite OP. And I gotta say, watching this PSG side to attack is quite something. It's really exciting, as they have what everyone wants to see. Well, I won't speak for everyone, but what most people want to see, including myself, is lots of pace, technical ability, the ability to dribble past multiple opponents, great passing. It's a treat. And they have a starting 11 that had an average age of 24.3 years old. And one of those players, who are 22, went ahead and got a second from PSG as Nuno Mendes calmly stepped around Emi Martinez, sent him for a hot dog, sent him down the Seine, and converted for 3-1 PSG. Honestly, it should have been more. At least they didn't lose this one as they did against Liverpool, but they probably shouldn't have conceded against Aston Villa. A bit of a lapse there, and they definitely should have scored more. Whether it was a great block or Emi Martinez or just hitting it wider over the bar. Now, what makes things tough for Aston Villa, despite playing at home, is that in their match going away to Anfield, you didn't really see PSG get intimidated nor their performance drop that much from the first leg. Naturally, Anfield pushed Liverpool forward and their performance was much better, but the threat from PSG was always there. Their level didn't really drop. And that's what makes playing against them such a nightmare, right? Even if Aston Villa try to get on the front foot and push for goals to bring themselves back level in the tie, you're going to leave yourself exposed to Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Barcola, or Doué, or Nuno Mendes, or Hakimi, or take your pick of whomever running at Emi Martinez. Luis Enrique and Luis Campos have built a fantastic squad, and Enrique has them finely tuned. But Unai Emery, he's good in these competitions. Let's see what happens. It's going to be tough, though. Barcelona at the Montjuic hosting Borussia Dortmund, a side who is finally starting to turn a corner with Niko Kovac domestically, as they have moved up to 8th after 2 wins on the trot. And I don't mean to sound patronizing. That's actually a big improvement from them. Granted, their Champions League form has always stayed stellar, right? Barcelona, a team that hasn't lost yet in 2025. So it's going to be very difficult for Borussia Dortmund, isn't it? Lamine Yamal with a great little flip-flap just to get things started in this match, set the tone a bit, but his finish was a bit wide. But Yamal would continue to have influence in this game often, as you would expect. And while Barcelona had much more of the ball and the attacking impetus, I guess, it's not like Dortmund didn't have a say in this match, in that first half at least, They weren't just laying there in the fetal position and hoping for the best. They were utilizing their pace in the wide areas when they could, and Guirassy nearly got on the end of a good cross in the 15th minute. Their time in the sun would come and go quite often, mostly go. Spent a lot of time in the shade. But the Barcelona goal always looked like it was coming, and it did from a cross that Inigo Martinez headed across goal. Cubarsí touched it towards goal. It was going in, but Rafinha made sure, as you should do. You can't afford to wait and see if it goes in just so you don't steal a goal from your teammate, right? You never know if a defender will make a miraculous intervention just to stuff it home. For the rest of the half, you saw Hansi Flick getting a little bit frustrated on the sidelines because they were giving up possession cheaply at times, and that led to opportunities for Dortmund. With one of the good ones, a hit into the side netting coming close, stuff like that. But it didn't take long for the Barcelona attackers to all link up in the second half, a play Barcelona supporters have seen over and over and over. Yamal with a curling ball to the back post, Rafinha getting on the end of it. The remix this time, however, was that he headed it across goal and Lewandowski finished this one off because the man always scores against Borussia Dortmund. 2-0 there. Later, Fermin Lopez had 2 great chances that came close, one bouncing off of the outside of the post, the other just clipping the crossbar on its way out after another great setup from Lamine Yamal. You could feel another goal coming for Barcelona. And they would get it shortly after. This time, Fermin Lopez left the finishing to Lewandowski, who absolutely smashed it low past Kobel for 3-0. And yes, Lamine Yamal getting that attack started off with a great ball forward to Fermin. And he would get a goal later, thanks to some great work from Lewandowski in his own half, showing that hunger to absolutely step on the throats of Dortmund in this match. Rafinha played Yamal in, and after one touch, Yamal just poked it past the keeper for 4-0. Dortmund can squeak by against teams like Sporting and Lille, but coming up against probably the best team in Europe at the moment, and it was always going to be a lopsided scoreline like this, even if we saw Dortmund come close towards the end of the match with 2 opportunities that were blocked by Big Ronald, and another that did find the back of the net from Max Bayer, but was called back for offside. Big time offside. 4-0 the final in this one in Barcelona, and it's difficult to see any way for Dortmund to come back, right? This one's over. Anyone saying otherwise, sound off in the comments. Let me know your thinking behind it, because remember, Barcelona are yet to lose a match in 2025, and while Flick may rotate a couple of positions, that doesn't mean that they will be much worse off, But hey, we have less than a week to find out what happens with everything in the Champions League. By the way, Rafinha and Lewandowski leading the Champions League with 12 and 11 goals respectively. Rafinha also with 7 assists. He's the leader in goals and assists. This is his Champions League so far this season. All right, guys, that is it. Thanks as per usual for watching along with me and for watching these videos. As always, leave your thoughts below, and I will see you on next Tuesday, for another video. Take care.